rainy evening. Anna, a young woman in her late 20s with a curious and artistic nature, stumbles across a flea market while walking home. Drawn to an old, dimly lit booth, she notices a large, ornate mirror with an intricate Gothic design. The carvings seem almost alive, depicting twisted vines, sorrowful faces, and what appear to be faint etchings of eyes. The vendor, an elderly woman with a strange demeanor, offers it to Anna at a price too good to refuse. "This mirror has history," the woman says cryptically, refusing to elaborate. Despite a slight unease, Anna buys the mirror, thinking it would be a perfect addition to her apartment. Anna places the mirror in her bedroom, marveling at how it adds an air of elegance. That night, as she sleeps, faint whispers fill the room. At first, she dismisses them as a trick of her imagination. Over the next few nights, the whispers grow louder. Words like health and trapped become clear. Shadows flit across the mirror's surface, and she notices her reflection occasionally lingers a second too long after she moves. Anna shares her experience with her best friend, Claire, who brushes it off as stress or an overactive imagination. But Anna begins to feel watched, even during the day. When she tries to ignore the mirror, she experiences strange phenomena. Her bedroom door creaks open on its own, and objects in the mirror's reflection are slightly out of place compared to reality. Determined to understand the mirror's origins, Anna dives into research. She discovers that the mirror once belonged to a Victorian-era medium, Eliza Harrow, who claimed it could bridge the world of the living and the dead. Eliza mysteriously disappeared during a seance, and the mirror, believed to be cursed, changed hands numerous times, leaving tragedy in its wake. Every owner either vanished or suffered from madness. Anna grows increasingly paranoid as the whispers evolve into voices calling her by name. Her reflection begins behaving independently, smiling when she frowns, waving when she's still. One night, she sees her reflection move toward the mirror's surface and press its hands against the glass, as though trapped inside. Anna's nightmares intensify. She dreams of being pulled into the mirror, surrounded by ghostly figures with hollow eyes. In one dream, Eliza Harrow appears, warning Anna to destroy the mirror before it's too late. Desperate, Anna attempts to sell or discard the mirror, but it always reappears in her apartment. Her grip on reality begins to slip as she starts seeing fleeting figures in her peripheral vision, even outside her home. One night, as the whispers become unbearable, Anna hears a loud crash from her bedroom. Rushing in, she finds the mirror lying face down on the floor, though she knows she left it securely mounted. As she hesitantly approaches it, she notices a faint, cold mist seeping from the edges. When she lifts the mirror, the reflection shows her room in perfect detail, except for one chilling difference. A shadowy figure stands behind her. Whipping around, she sees nothing, but when she looks back, the figure in the mirror is now closer, its hand reaching for her reflection. Panicked, Anna covers the mirror with a blanket and calls Claire, begging her to come over. When Claire arrives, the blanket has been pulled off, and the mirror stands upright again, as if nothing had happened. Claire, still skeptical, examines it, but sees only her own reflection. Anna, however, notices the shadowy figure lingering just behind Claire in the glass. She screams, startling Claire, who begins to feel uneasy but insists on staying the night. Unable to sleep, Anna sits in her living room with Claire, both tense and silent. The apartment feels oppressively still, the air thick and cold. Suddenly, they hear soft tapping from the bedroom. Reluctantly, they investigate, finding the mirror trembling slightly. The whispers return, louder and more urgent, pleading for release. Claire, now frightened, suggests smashing the mirror, but Anna hesitates, remembering her research about the curse. In a moment of bravery, Anna decides to confront the mirror alone. She asks Claire to wait outside the room and locks the door. The whispers crescendo into a deafening roar as Anna steps closer. Her reflection doesn't move this time. Instead, it stares at her with a twisted, malevolent grin. Suddenly, hands burst through the glass, grabbing Anna and pulling her forward. She screams as she struggles, the glass rippling like water around her body. Claire, hearing the commotion, forces the door open and sees Anna half submerged in the mirror. Without thinking, Claire grabs Anna's arms and pulls with all her strength. The shadowy figures in the glass claw at Anna, their hollow eyes wide with desperation. Just as Claire yanks Anna free, the mirror cracks but doesn't shatter. Instead, the room is plunged into silence. The mirror's surface now dull and lifeless. Claire and Anna sit together, trembling and unsure of what to do next. Claire insists they must destroy the mirror for good. They wrap it in a heavy sheet, load it into Claire's car, and drive out to a remote quarry. As dawn breaks, they heave the mirror over the edge, watching it shatter against the rocks below. For the first time in weeks, Anna feels a strange sense of peace. But the story doesn't end there. 2 weeks later, Anna begins experiencing strange dreams, visions of a dark, endless corridor lined with mirrors. She feels compelled to walk through it, each step filling her with dread. One night, she wakes to find her bedroom mirror glowing faintly. She covers it, but the whispers return, louder than ever. Meanwhile, Claire, now living alone, starts noticing changes in her own home. A mirror in her hallway develops strange streaks, as though hands had pressed against the glass from the inside. Her reflection begins acting subtly out of sync, tilting its head when she stands still, blinking when she doesn't. One evening, as she walks past the mirror, her reflection doesn't move at all. It simply stares at her, smiling faintly. Panicking, Claire calls Anna, only to discover that Anna hasn't been answering her phone for days. Desperate, Claire drives to Anna's apartment. She finds the door ajar, the rooms inside eerily silent. Claire steps inside and sees the antique mirror, perfectly intact, standing against the wall. Claire realizes the mirror cannot be destroyed, and that it has claimed Anna. The whispers urge Claire to join them, promising freedom from the pain and fear that now consumes her. Torn between her terror and her determination to save Anna, Claire decides to confront the mirror one last time. She steps closer, the surface rippling as shadowy hands reach out toward her. Just as the hands grab her, Claire pulls out a shard of glass she had saved from the quarry and drives it into the mirror's frame. The room erupts into chaos. The mirror's surface fractures, releasing blinding light and ear-splitting screams. The shadowy figures dissolve, and the mirror finally shatters into countless pieces. Claire collapses, unconscious. Claire wakes up in a hospital bed, disoriented but alive. A nurse informs her that she was found unconscious in her apartment, surrounded by shattered glass. Anna is never found, but Claire senses she is free, her soul no longer trapped. Months later, Claire moves to a new city, trying to rebuild her life. One evening, as she unpacks, she notices a small shard of the mirror among her belongings. She stares at it, her reflection smiling back at her, but not in sync. The whispers begin again. Now, here ends the story number 1, and now we are going to start the story number 2. And after that, we will share more stories with you. But for now, the story number 1 is over here. The story begins with Claire, a young artist who has recently moved to a small town to escape the chaos of city life. She's exploring a flea market on the outskirts of town when she stumbles upon an antique mirror. Its Gothic, ornate design immediately catches her eye. A gilded frame adorned with intricate carvings of twisted vines, faces hidden among the leaves, and an inscription in Latin etched at the bottom. The vendor, an old man with a cryptic demeanor, insists the mirror is one of a kind. Despite a slight unease, Claire buys it, feeling it would make a perfect centerpiece for her studio. She brings the mirror home and hangs it on the wall opposite her bed. That night, as she drifts off to sleep, she hears faint, unintelligible whispers. She dismisses it as her imagination. Over the next few nights, the whispers grow louder. At first, they're garbled and indistinct, like a chorus of overlapping voices. Then they start forming words. Help us. Trapped. Don't look too long. Claire begins to notice subtle changes in the mirror. Her reflection lags for a split second, or she sees fleeting shadows moving in the background. One night, while painting, she looks up and sees her reflection staring at her, though she hasn't turned toward the mirror. She panics, but when she looks again, everything appears normal. Her best friend, Megan, visits and laughs off Claire's concerns, calling it sleep deprivation and stress. To prove her point, Megan stares into the mirror for an extended moment. Nothing happens at first, but after she leaves, Claire notices a new shadowy figure in the mirror, one that looks disturbingly like Megan. Determined to uncover the truth, Claire researches the mirror's inscription and discovers its dark history. The mirror once belonged to a 19th century occultist who claimed it was a gateway to the other side. According to legend, the mirror doesn't just reflect reality, it absorbs it. Determined to uncover the truth, Claire researches the mirror's inscription and discovers its dark history. The mirror once belonged to a 19th century occultist who claimed it was a gateway to the other side. According to legend, the mirror doesn't just reflect reality, it absorbs it. An elderly woman nearby warns her about the mirror, calling it the whispering glass. She says it has been passed around for centuries, always bringing misfortune. Claire realizes she's running out of time. Her reflection has become more active, moving on its own, even in her peripheral vision. Worse, she begins to hear Megan's voice among the whispers, begging for help. Claire tries to destroy the mirror, but every attempt fails. The glass won't crack, the frame won't burn. Instead, the mirror seems to retaliate. Her reflection appears in her dreams, mocking her and taunting her with visions of being trapped forever. The line between reality and illusion blurs as Claire starts seeing reflections of herself in other surfaces. Windows, puddles, even the eyes of others. Desperate, she turns to a local historian who dabbles in the occult. He tells her the only way to free the trapped souls is to willingly trade places with them. Once inside, she'll have one chance to shatter the mirror from within, breaking the curse. Claire sets up candles and recites an incantation provided by the historian. The whispers grow deafening as the room fills with a cold, unnatural wind. Claire gazes into the mirror and feels herself pulled inside. Suddenly, she's in a dark, endless void filled with distorted reflections of everyone the mirror has ever trapped. Among them is Megan, who is fading into nothingness. Claire fights against the pull of the void, reaching the center where her reflection waits, holding a shard of glass. They engage in a battle of wills, each trying to overpower the other. Claire manages to seize the shard and strikes the surface of the mirror from the inside. The mirror shatters, releasing a burst of light and an ear-piercing scream. Claire wakes up on the floor of her studio, surrounded by shards of the mirror. Megan is at her side, confused but alive. The whispers are gone. As Claire cleans up the debris, she finds one small, unbroken shard. For a moment, she swears she sees her reflection smirk before it fades. Deciding not to take any chances, she buries the shard far away, ensuring it can never harm anyone again. Or so she hopes. Despite burying the shard, Claire begins to notice subtle, eerie occurrences. Reflections in random objects feel off. Water ripples unnaturally in her sink, and her shadow seems to lag behind her movements. Megan, too, starts to feel the after effects. Her dreams are plagued with images of the void, and she sometimes hears faint whispers when she's alone. Claire becomes obsessed with ensuring the mirror's power is truly destroyed. She visits the historian again, who warns her that fragments of cursed objects can still carry their power. Each shard is a potential seed for the mirror's rebirth. Horrified, Claire realizes she needs to find the shard she buried and destroy it completely. Returning to the burial site, Claire digs through the earth with trembling hands. When she retrieves the shard, it's colder than ice, and as she holds it, she feels an overwhelming sense of dread. The whispers return, louder and more insistent. "You can't escape. We'll find you. Join us." She rushes back to her studio, determined to obliterate the shard once and for all. She places it in a vise and strikes it with a hammer. The shard doesn't break, but instead emits a high-pitched wail that shatters the windows in her studio. Claire stumbles back, bleeding from her ears. The shard glows faintly, and her own reflection peers back at her from its surface, grinning maliciously. Claire realizes she'll have to return to the void one last time to end the curse. She prepares for the ritual again, this time with Megan by her side. Despite Megan's protests, Claire insists she can't do it alone. Together, they perform the incantation and stare into the shard. They are both pulled into the void, where the atmosphere is even more oppressive than before. The distorted reflections swarm around them, their faces twisted with despair and anger. The central figure, Claire's reflection, now appears more grotesque, its features warped and its grin unnaturally wide. "You can't destroy me," the reflection hisses. "I am you." Claire realizes that to defeat the mirror, she must confront her own fears and insecurities. She steps forward, ignoring the whispers and taunts, and plunges her hand into the reflection's chest. The figure screams and the void begins to collapse around them. Megan grabs Claire's hand, pulling her toward a faint light in the distance. They barely escape as the void implodes, leaving them gasping on the floor of Claire's studio. The shard is gone, reduced to a pile of ash. Months later, Claire and Megan try to move on. The studio is repaired and life seems to return to normal. But every now and then, Claire catches a flicker of movement in the corner of her eye. She dismisses it as paranoia, but the unease never fully leaves her. Meanwhile, in a distant flea market, a new vendor sets up shop. Among his wares is an ornate frame, newly repaired, with an inscription in Latin at the bottom. The cycle begins anew.